The Ben Shapiro Show Sunday Special. I'm really excited to welcome to the program Ana Kasparian. Ana, thanks so much for stopping by. Really appreciate it.
Thank you for having me.
So first of all, we have to take on the elephant in the room. You are braving grave danger coming on a show like this one. So what's prompting you to actually join me on the show? Because it is hard to get people who disagree on shows like this one, for sure.
Well, I think that it's important to talk to people you disagree with, debate and hash out some of the ideas that we have and the differences we have. I'm not afraid of my political views. I'm not afraid to admit when maybe I got something wrong in the past and maybe I've evolved on my political views. It's just really, really important in a functioning democracy to have Americans see one another as fellow Americans as opposed to an identity that needs to be super combative with a different identity. And I think that's what we've kind of turned into. You and I clearly have a lot of disagreements on policy, disagreements on culture, but it doesn't necessarily mean that you're an awful person. It doesn't mean that I should be afraid of you. If anything, I should prove that I genuinely believe my political views by engaging in these debates. If I can defend what I believe with actual facts, statistics, empirical evidence, well, that only proves that there's good reason to believe in the policies that I'm promoting. And it's easy to be in an echo chamber where everyone already agrees with you, but you're not really being challenged. So I like to be challenged. I like to put my political ideas to the test, and I think this is a good opportunity to do it.
Yeah, this is one of the...
This was really a nice intro here. I think she basically positioned herself very well to say, look, we have differing opinions, but this is a chance for me to voice my opinions to you, for you to voice your opinions back to me, see if there's some common ground. If there is, great. But at the end of the day, let's just, we don't have to agree on everything, but we don't have to be to the point where we're acrimonious, and just absolutely, hate each other. That's not what basically Ana is saying, that she's about. And that's why she agreed to come on for this debate. So I really applaud her because, as Ben basically said in the beginning, it is hard to get people that are on the left, progressives, to come on to shows because then they'll be saying, oh, you're a traitor, you're going to the other side, what are you doing? Don't go there, don't give them a platform, don't let them speak, we don't want to hear their opinions. It's that same echo chamber. And the same I would say for anybody on the right that doesn't want to go onto a show of the left. Although very rarely do people on the left invite people on the right to be on their shows. Anyways, let's continue.
The things that I really like about you as a person, we actually got to know each other when we did a debate about a year ago, I think, over in Pennsylvania, and we were talking in the green room beforehand, and we got along as human beings. And one of the things that's nice about conversations like this is, again, what you say I think is super important, which is that the social fabric of the country is going to be built on the idea that people can have conversations like this, and yet it's considered so unusual and so crazy. Have you gotten any blowback for being willing to do conversations like this one?
I have. I will say, it is a small portion of a very loud group of self-identified leftists on Twitter, for instance. They'll get very upset. They'll accuse me of platforming you, even though, I don't know if they notice, you've got a bit of a platform on your own. I don't need to help you in building a platform or platforming you. I think that there's this very real fear that in engaging in these conversations, you are legitimizing the other side. And my point is, as long as the other side's coming at me with good faith arguments, they genuinely believe what they're saying, having these debates is important in actually deciphering what you as the viewer believe, right? Because if you're only listening to one side, if you're listening to leftist media, liberal media, and you don't get the other side at all, your policy ideas are never going to be challenged. You're not going to hear the other side. And I think it's led to this culture right now where Americans overwhelmingly seem to have difficulty with nuance, right? Everything needs to be black and white. And honestly, political issues are usually a lot more complex, a lot more nuanced, and nothing in life is black and white.
And that's what makes them interesting in the first place.
Right.
If it was all that black and white or that easy, you wouldn't have to listen to shows like yours or shows like mine, and you wouldn't have to, I've always encouraged people to listen to shows that are on the other side of the aisle, because otherwise they don't know what I'm saying that's fact and what I'm saying that's opinion. And so I think it's really important for people to hear conversations between people who really, really disagree. You used a phrase there that I think is really important, good faith. And this is one that I've had to kind of think through myself, because obviously there are conversations that are not worth having. You'll have people online online who will say, you should go talk to this person. You know, this person happens to be, like dregs of the earth. And then you say, well, I don't really wish to talk to, and they say, well, you say you're willing to talk to pretty much anybody. So how do you draw that line? How do you draw the line between somebody who is worth talking to, somebody who's acting in good faith, and somebody who's not really acting in good faith?
Well, I think the interaction that you and I had both before and during that debate was really important to me in that it gave me a better idea and sense of who you are. One of the issues I've had in recent years is the the caricatures that are drawn of the other side. And I think the left does it, the right does it. So just kind of like lumping you in with, let's say, Tucker Carlson, lumping you in with, I don't know, someone else that I certainly don't think is coming at these debates from a good faith perspective. They're looking for clicks. They're looking to build their public persona. There's a lot of that going on.
I just have to stop right here. She's saying, she's mentioned Tucker Carlson. She basically said they're looking for clicks. They're trying to build their persona. Everybody is trying to do that. Ana, you're trying to get clicks on TYT. You're trying to build your persona. You're trying to build your prestige, your power. Ben Shapiro is trying to do that through the Daily Wire. Hey, we're trying to do that here through the Dr. Nasser Sheikh Show. We're small right now, just like these guys started out in the beginning. And hopefully, by putting forth our platform, our ideas, our conservative values, our love for America, everything we talk about, life, liberty, pursuit of happiness, all those things, that our channel will grow. Because guess what? If people don't like what you say, if people don't like to hear what, where you stand, where your values are, your persona, you know what? Let the market dictate where you're going to go. Now, again, Ben sort of asked that question, where do you draw the line as to who you're going to talk to? I think that has to be an individual type of decision. Do you want to platform, people that are absolute racists and bigots and those kind of things? Those are decisions everyone's going to have to make when you start doing interviews with people or being invited on people's shows or have people come onto your shows. So for Ana to say, clicks, persona, everybody's trying to do that. The question is, how do you go about doing that?
You're a pretty respectful person when we're engaging in these debates. I don't really see you trying to draw caricatures of me as we're in the middle of these conversations. So to me, that's important. You can just tell there's like toxicity, and then there are people that you disagree with politically, but you can actually have a respectful conversation with them. And because I had that experience with you, I was comfortable again having this experience today in hashing out our differences, but also talking about where there might be some similarities, where we want the country to go, because this country's always had a variety of political ideas, political differences, but there was a time in America where people could engage in these debates, engage in these conversations, and leave feeling that mutual respect for one another, seeing each other as fellow Americans, as opposed to my enemy, the other side. We need to, crush them. We need to do that. I want to move away from that. And honestly, during the coronavirus pandemic, I've opened my mind up to some programming that I otherwise wouldn't have listened to. So, for instance, there's this show called The John and Ken Show. It airs in LA, but I think it's actually syndicated all over the country. And I like listening to it because there are a lot of perspectives in that show that I disagree with. But there have been moments where one of the hosts will say something that in the short term I might be offended by or angry about or whatever, but I have to do my due diligence. So I'll investigate it a little bit and think to myself, oh, well, actually, he had a point there. So I think the necessity for nuclear energy is a good example of that. Once I realized right now the technology for renewables isn't quite where we need it to be, where we can just give up fossil fuels and be okay. Well, a good clean energy solution to kind of close that gap, at least for now, would be nuclear. And you say that, and a lot of people on the left have a negative reaction to it, but I think it's partly because they're not typically exposed to other perspectives. Everyone's kind of in their own ideological bubble. It's a huge problem, in my opinion, and that's why I want to have conversations.
And that's a great example. So I've always used nuclear energy as actually the litmus test on people who take climate change seriously. There are people on both sides who don't, right? There are people on the right who will say that it doesn't exist, that there has been no global warming over the course of the last 100 years, or who say that there is no anthropogenic global warming, it's entirely the fault of the sun. And my perspective has always been, I don't have the expertise to challenge the IPCC when they suggest that there will be a certain amount of climate change. Their sort of outlying, more extreme predictions are the ones that have sort of the least predictability, and they admit that. And so the question becomes, what do we do in order to prevent as much of this as possible while still maintaining a lifestyle that Westerners are used to and that we should aspire to for the rest of the world? And nuclear energy has always been a great way of doing that. And so that perspective has tended to draw fire from both sides. You have people who say, well, why are you even acknowledging that this sort of thing is, that you sound like Greta Thunberg? And then you'll have people on the left saying, well, he doesn't even believe in global warming because he is advocating for nuclear energy. That sort of failure of nuance, I think, has really deleterious effects because it prevents us from accomplishing solutions that, if you and I can agree on a thing, it's a pretty good notion that that's a fairly commonsensical thing, because we disagree on so many things. That if we can agree on something like nuclear energy, then really there's not that much to argue about.
And I mean, nuclear energy does not emit the type of climate emissions, climate-causing emissions that other fossil fuel, oil, natural gas, that definitely does have an impact. It contributes to the climate emergency. So anyone who is against nuclear energy, I think there are some points that are legitimate. So for instance, people are concerned about another Chernobyl. I totally understand that. But the technology has improved since then, better safeguards.
Not run by the communist Russians.
But look, these are conversations that should be had, and we should be fearless in having these conversations. I feel confident in my beliefs and my values, but I also really want to get into basically a culture that leaves ego aside and helps people feel comfortable acknowledging when, hey, maybe I didn't get something right. Because there are certainly areas where, turns out, I didn't get something right. I used to be 100% against nuclear. I thought nuclear would be super dangerous. I totally bought into like the Chernobyl related.
Exactly.
But once you start reading into it a little more, once you actually start thinking for yourself independently, independent of some ideological model that you're supposed to fit into perfectly, it really does open your horizons, and it allows for you to learn. And that's what I want to do. I want to learn, and I want to make sure that the information I'm getting to my audience is well thought out and accurate.
So, I
think right now that opening salvo, I don't want to say salvo, that opening remarks from Ana, basically acknowledging, as I think we all should, are there positions that you probably had because you were in your echo chamber and you didn't want to listen to, the opposite side or opposing views? And she came out very succinctly and said, look, I've changed my views, or I've at least been able to acknowledge the fact that maybe I need to broaden my horizons on certain aspects of things. And she brought up nuclear power. And I think that having her come on a conservative show like this will allow others within the conservative movement, Republicans, people on the right, to say, you know what? And again, look, she's coming on there to, and I understand when you go back to your respective corners, like in the boxing, in the arena of politics, and you go back to your own corners, well then, you know what? We obviously fall back on some of those, the rhetoric, the narrative, that we want to basically, present out there. And we do things and we get a little fiery and a little feisty and whatever, and a little brash and bold. And so Ana here basically is saying that, look, and I think she's presenting a very nice side of her. And I think that's a side that if you're sitting there talking, you were, just in a room together, and you're having, these, discussions back and forth, I think everything is going to be fine without no one's throwing any insults, no one's, name calling, those kinds. It's not nasty. It's really, really nice. And for her to come out right away and basically say, hey, look, there are some places that I think we can agree on. There are some places where I have changed my mind on. And we're worlds apart on so many things, but are there some things that we can come together on? And if this is one of them, that's great. We might know how we're going to get to the end point, but we agree on at least a starting point, and let's go from there. So in this regard here, I think it was a really nice opening piece here for part one. We thank you for watching. We're going to come and we're going to segment this entire thing. I think it was over almost an hour and a half long, a little bit over an hour and a half in total when the Daily Wire did this with Ana. So we're going to break this up into little pieces. So as I said, this is part one. We thank you for watching, and you've been watching the Dr. Nasser Sheikh Show. I've been your guest host. My name is Dr. Nasser. If you haven't done so already, subscribe to the channel, hit that notification bell, like, share, and follow us. That's how we're going to grow with the algorithms. That's how we're going to be able to put this content out for you. We really appreciate it. I'll leave you with my final thought, which is, when you're right, you're right. And when you're left, you're wrong. We'll see you again next time, folks. Take care and stay safe.